So here's another video on window motors. This is the spare one that I'd mentioned. It says R. The interesting thing is here it says RH and left hand, which maybe this arm was consistent. There may be another marking on this one. A couple of things that have been pointed out is that there's a nylon ball on this which moves up and down on the window guide, and if that's squared off that could cause a problem. This particular motor, actually I did run it. I went on eBay and bought a $30 power supply, always useful, and has current limiting and all this other stuff. Should have bought one of those a long time ago, as usual, one of those things you do last minute. So I did run it up on 12 volts. This one works well. A couple of things maybe pointing out, if you get enough wear in the mechanism, you'll notice there's a mark here, and if I lift this motor up, I'm assuming what's happening, it is rubbing on that anchor point, or that sort of casting, which could be a problem, but maybe just apply some grease on there. Here's another point that maybe want to lubricate in there. Someone pointed out on one of my other videos you could pump grease into this. I think it will be difficult. Yeah, this one you can see the coil, like it might be easy to pump grease in there, but I think it'll be best to dismantle it and grease it up. I will dismantle this one, and a couple of things you want to be aware of is if you decide to take this motor off, this arm is spring loaded because of this clock spring, and someone had mentioned run the motor up so that the arm, this hole lines up with this. You can put a bolt in there or a screwdriver. I'm going to put a bolt in there because I'm only doing this single-handed. And then what I will do is undo the motor. This motor is working. I'm not going to tamper with it. I'm just going to dismantle it. It's raining outside. Cars are in hibernation, not doing anything, and I've got nothing better to do this morning. Well, I should be watching the game, but yeah, woke up too late. And yeah, this one's a scrap, not scrap one, a bent arm, so I'll do something like this. Interesting, the wires on my Stag one are slightly different, different color. So is this from a Stag? I don't know, but I got it from some parts. Another thing that's come to mind is, and I might have mentioned this, is people on the SLC forum have mentioned that one of the bolts should be shorter than the other. On both of my 71 Stags, I have the book shows it's a pointed 1/4-inch bolt. My ones on both my 71 Stags don't have their 1/4-inch regular bolts, and they have a spring washer or a lock washer and a flat washer on top, so it doesn't interfere with the mechanism. So they are all for the same. Maybe later ones, later Stags had changed that, but as I said, in parts book doesn't show that lock flat washer. My one, but both my 71 Stag have those flat washers to help. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the motor off, because I wanted to just see what's going on. Also, someone pointed out from a document on Dasher Drew Goes By SLC forum, where when you release the spring, the question I had was how many coils does it wind up or wind down to give you assistance when it goes up. It's not much, so I will take it off and just make a note where the coil is sitting, and then we'll go from there. So as I said, I'm going to put a bolt through this hole, and then I'm going to dismantle the just disconnect the motor just for the sake of it. I'm not going to touch this motor, it's working fine. Probably just dismantle it, maybe straighten this out a little bit and put it back in my parts bin. But this is just for those people who are interested in finding out more about the window motor. You can dismantle these. Apparently there's a couple of ball bearings in this thing. You want to be careful of when you dismantle it. That's interesting. I didn't notice that thing, whatever that is. But as I said, I'm not sure if it is a Stag one or what. But it looks somewhat similar. If you can let me know, that'll be great. Okay, bye. So I put a nut bolt through this, hopefully stop that spring over me. Somebody pointed out also I had to use a very thin walled socket because it seems very difficult to get there, at least these two, but the rest seems okay. So I've taken off the nuts. I've always wanted to know why they use different types of washers, like this sort of washer, serrated washer here, as opposed to say a lock washer. If you know, let me know, put it in the comments. I'll probably Google it and find out. Always something curious. Anyway, the motor's off. I think I have to give it a tap with a hammer, or a mallet I should say, not a hammer, and then we'll see the next bit. So pull the motor off, and I didn't realize, to be honest, that the gear would come off, that would be integrated, but it isn't. So the gear comes off on this. So some people say grease it all up with fresh grease, clean it all up, maybe take the motor out. But this seems, I'm not going to touch it. As I said, nice thing is when you anchor it in there, it's not going to go flying in your face. So this is probably something you should do. Just powered up the motor to 12 volts. Look at the current, it's about 3 amps. About 40 watts, so 3 amps for that motor, 3.7, 3.8, yeah, varies. But seems to be, let's put some strain on it, see if I can do anything. Not really. Let's have it go on the other way. Again, one-handed. Definitely feels more rough in this direction compared to the on this motor than the other direction. I can feel the table vibrating. Oh, actually, it's this thing here. It's not the motor, it's this thing. Maybe some grease would help. But yeah, seems okay. But nothing wrong with this motor. I'm not going to touch it. I don't like touching things that seem to be running. I probably would put new grease in that if I was going to use it. Let's go ahead and slowly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a vise, and I'm going to undo it because I don't particularly want it, as I said, spring into my face. So try and figure out a reference of where the spring goes. So there is a bit of tension on this already. What I'm going to do is, since I've got a video, I want to make a note of which way the spring is attached to, so I can tell that this is where the tension is. Well, basically this arm fell out, and let's move this. Oops, sorry. Oh wow. So it's definitely gone more than that. Let's put it back again. And let me see if I can jam something and then just get another reference, because I don't particularly want to open it in my vise. So to put a bolt in that position, again one-handed, I'm gonna let's tighten up again in my vise. Sorry, let's pull it. Still has a little bit of tension there. Again, I'm going to do it one more time. Put a bolt hole here. Hopefully it goes all the way through. Make sure. Difficult. Okay, it's there. Let's take it off the thing again. Rotate it one more time. Make sure it's anchored. And again. Take this out. Sorry. Okay, now it's off. So it's pretty much, I would say, almost one full circle. Let's give you a reference of how tight the spring should be. Let's take this out, and as you can see, the spring comes off. And maybe just apply some grease in this. Spring is pretty unflexed. I'll probably put it in some petrol and maybe just put it back. But anyway, this will give you an idea of if you're ever going to pull your motor apart, just to give you a reference of what's going on. There's another bush there where the spindle fits in. And another thing, interestingly, when I wound up the motor, if you look, there's the gear will actually come off one end, but if you notice here, it won't come off the other. I don't know why they did it that way. There must be a reason. Also, another thing is there's a mark here, as you can see. So probably there could be a bit of play somewhere going on in the mechanism, and it's binding. So there could be another place to maybe use emery cloth and put some grease on there if you think your mechanism is not fine. Anyway, that's as far as I'm going to go. I'll just probably reassemble it, but at least now you have an idea of how many rotations this arm goes for this spring, because that was something I wanted to do. And if I have problems with my window, I will do it. Just this morning again, I was playing around with the driver's side window. They work. Put the other switch back in nicely. They work. So hopefully this, if you need any guidance, just look at these videos. All right, take care. So another thing, notice I talked about that mark here. But if you look here, there's another mark, and that's exactly where that bolt hole lines up. So possibly on this one there was a problem, which was binding. And it's possible when people said the window gets stuck, or it maybe gets stuck in this position. If you can see that, I don't know. Anyway, a little bit of play here, a little bit of wobble, but I'm not going to worry about that. As I said, this is a spare unit. Just wanted to show people how it all comes apart. So there you go. Just some observation quickly. If you notice, there's a little whatever you call it there, and I think the wiper motor actually rubs on that. So if you do take the motor out, maybe you want to apply grease on this little whatever this thing is, indentation. But I think it's a guide, and that probably explains why it rubs on there. But as I said, this one does have that other issue with the bolt hole lining up with that. I just greased this up. It runs pretty smoothly. A little bit of play, but that's okay. So I'm just thinking now that you can put the spring on both ways and it'll work both ways. So that's probably explains why this has two part numbers, left hand and right hand. Even though it's not symmetrical, you can probably still use them on both left and right. But as I said, the motor definitely has the R written on there. So let me know your thoughts. There's no thrust washer at the bottom of this, so I'm just curious how it sits on there. Does it wear out or whatever? But anyway, a good clean, maybe in at some point. I'm not going to bother with it, but just put in a grease bath and re-grease everything. On in the video, I sort of connected this in the opposite direction, and I said it was vibrating. All I did was put a little bit of oil on the spindle. There doesn't seem to be any thrust washers or anything on the bottom of that. Anyway, so I put just a drop of oil on it, and wow, it makes a big difference. It's running very, very smoothly. Still, we're getting 3.5 amps on this motor, so it's quite a big, juicy motor. I would say, compared to modern cars. But yeah, just interesting. Maybe it would be time to take out the motor and grease it, even though you have window problems. As I said, it's just very, very smooth, just by putting a drop of oil. Obviously, probably need grease on there. One more thing, as always, something I learned: if you do undo this, there's some sort of preload or something on that, so you want to make sure you don't over tighten it or push it in too much. But there is a bearing, I think I was told, ball bearing at the end of it, so you want to be careful. Also, another thing is, since it's magnetic, you may lose one of those bearings. I've been looking at a document again. Dash is True sent that document. I haven't looked at it in detail, but he mentioned there's some bearings in there, and you may get stuck on the side of the metal if you open it up in the motor itself. There's something about this thing: when you tighten it down, don't over tighten it. There's got to be some sort of movement there. But as I said, this is running very nicely since I just put that bit of oil on there. Here's another observation. You know, if you look at the current, it was like drawing 3.7. Now it's down to 3. Let me just switch it off and see what happens. When it starts, it needs that 3.7, but once it starts, it goes down, so it's not getting too warm. It's running pretty well. So I'm running the motor in the opposite direction, and if you notice, look at the current in the opposite direction. It's 2.7. So I'm not really an expert on motors, but interesting observation.